You're listening to the Common Fan Podcast, a Husker football podcast for the common fan by the common fan.
Welcome back to the Common Fan Podcast. I am TJ Burkle, as always, alongside Matty Owens Sr. and Geoff in Lincoln. Hey, Common fans, if you're like us, you want to make sure you've got plenty of beef on hand all summer long and all season long. That's why we're big fans of Oak Barn Beef's freezer filler bundles. Premium, dry-aged Nebraska beef shipped right to you, enough to keep the freezer stocked and your crew happy. Check out oakbarnbeef.com to grab yours and support a Nebraska family farm while you're at it. Also, make sure to get to the Common Fan website, www.commonfan.co. Subscribe on YouTube, like this episode, sign up for the free newsletter, follow all the social media accounts, and generally keep up with all the fun and frivolity of the Common Fans. Hey, we're keeping right on trucking with the Mount Rushmore series. We're having a lot of fun with this summer, and what we've learned is the more Mount Rushmore categories we talk about, the more we want to do more, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And today we're going to talk about walk-ons. Is there a more Nebraskan tradition than walk-ons? And we've got some great options to choose from. Excited to get into this discussion. Now, as a reminder, we're not necessarily looking for the best players or those with the best stats. We're considering bigger picture things like impact on the program, championships, cultural significance, historical significance, etc. Joining us today is friend of the program, longtime Nebraska sports writer Mike Babcock. And of course, Brandon Vogel of the Counter Read newsletter is our special guest for the entire series. Gentlemen, how are we doing today? Anybody?
Great. Great. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Mike, it's good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks.
That's great. That's great.
Awesome.
You ready to talk some walk-ons?
You bet.
You know
We got two of the best when it comes to, I think, sort of Nebraska history and analysis, Mike and Brandon. So I feel like you guys are uniquely suited for this particular conversation and excited to get into it. So, Mike, how we do this, we just pick one at a time. And so we'll start with you, and you give us your first one, and then the group will go around, and if anyone else had it, they'll identify that as well, and then we'll keep going from there.
Okay.
So I think we've done several of these at this point, and I think at the very least we have identified like all the names that should be in consideration. I'm anxious to hear from common fans about whether or not we nailed the right four for each of the categories. And then as a reminder, after we're done with all of these categories and we've got a Mount Rushmore for different positions and different groups and different categories, then the ultimate episode of the series, we will attempt to come up with the Mount Rushmore for Nebraska football.
Yes.
All right. Without further ado, Mike, do you want to give us your first name on the Mount Rushmore of Nebraska football walk-ons?
Okay. So the most significant one, is that the way we're doing it, or just?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to do your George Washington first, that's great.
Okay. I'm trying to think which one I want to do first. I guess I'll do Isaiah Hipp first. Isaiah Moses Walter Hipp. I am Hipp. I'm Hipp.
Yep.
Which I think was Boyd Epley was originally the one that said that. Let's call him I am. And Tom said, well, his name's Isaiah. If he wants to be Isaiah, we should call him Isaiah. And Isaiah didn't care. It was whatever people wanted. Mike Corrigan, I think, his position coach, couldn't remember his name. He knew it was biblical, so he called him Zeke for Ezekiel. That was Corrigan's name, but I am Hipp. He would be the first one I would identify. He was known as college football's most famous walk-on when he stepped into the picture. First start, 254 yards rushing against Indiana in 1977 with Rick Burns injured. So he got this opportunity and rushed for 1,301 yards. Actually, the media guide shows him having rushed for more than that because it included the bowl games. But, the NCAA didn't include bowl games in stats until 2002. I am Hipp. I'm Hipp. That's my first one.
Love that.
Love that. Brandon, did you have I am Hipp on your list as well?
I had him on the long list, and we can talk about it maybe later at the end because it's this one, the walk-ons was interesting because with a lot of these, I kind of was able to settle on my 4 and then have my list after that. Walk-ons didn't really go that way for me, as we discussed in the pre-show meeting. This is one where it's not easy. It's not like there's a no-brainer number one. There's not a Tom Osborne or Bob Devaney. But for me, there was one guy that had to be on there. So he was my number one pick, and that was defensive end Jared Tomich. Goes on to become a multiple-time All-American. What was he? He was a second-round NFL draft pick. And a little bit interesting because, the walk-on culture and history at Nebraska is so tied to the state itself. He was from Indiana. He was a guy who was a really good player someplace else. Similar, in a lot of ways to Nebraska in terms of like makeup and things like that. But Jared Tomich, played during the best era of the Osborne years at least. So he was the number one with a bullet-ish for me, even after just acknowledging that kind of player didn't totally exist. But when you look at kind of the heights he reached objectively, in terms of becoming an All-American, a Lombardi finalist, I think, at least a nominee, and coming from walk-on status. So for me, he was the first player that came to mind.
Love it.
Mhm.
Matteo, who'd you have? Just name one. If you had both of those, just name one for now.
Okay. I have a guy that played a position that's near and dear to my heart and many Husker fans' hearts that unfortunately is not as used, let's say, today. Maybe doesn't even exist on a lot of teams. And that's a fullback, and I'm going with Joel Makovicka. There's so many good fullbacks in Nebraska football history, but to me, the total combination of a blocker and being able to run the ball was Joel Mack. And I will say his older brother, Jeff, kind of paved the way for him. Jeff walked on first. But I don't know if the brothers would argue that Joel is definitely the more complete football player. So, yeah, I'm going with Joel Makovicka, an integral part of those mid-'90s teams, and certainly the 97 team that won the title. He was, I think, a starter by then. So, yeah, Joel Mack, one of my first choice, although I did have a couple of the other guys that were mentioned.
Boom.
Love that. And Matteo, that actually, I'll try not to tip my hand too much. That actually, I had another fullback on my list, but that's making me rethink the fullback that I had on my list. So I'm excited to get to that conversation.
Yes.
Wait.
And I also want to say, maybe next summer we do the Mount Rushmore of fullbacks.
Yeah, there you go. Next summer we'll do like more specific position groups. Yeah.
Sure.
For those watching on YouTube, we lost Mike. He's having internet issues. Hopefully he is back with us momentarily. Geoff, who is your first one?
So I'm going to piggyback off of Mike there. So I also had I am Hipp. I'm Hipp. Just he laid it out pretty well there too in detail, but he rushed for over 2,814 yards. He had 24 touchdowns. At that time, I think he was one of the only Huskers to have consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. And he set a school record for running 250 yards in a single season. And I can't remember if Mike said that included bowl games or not. But there is one thing, and I wish Mike was on here right now. to answer this.
He is back,
oh,
Jeff. He's
Okay.
back.
The one thing, Mike, and you can verify this for me or not, I had read that he hitchhiked from Chapin, South Carolina to Lincoln, Nebraska to play football here. Is there any truth to that at all? That's just something I saw on there.
I'm not sure about that. Another one that I have on the list did. And,
Wow. Oh,
A lot of
I'm not sure
hitchhiking
if
going on.
Isaiah did or not.
don't have to reveal it yet. I love those inspirational stories, especially when it comes to walk-ons, especially back in like the 70s and stuff like that. You could just hitchhike places safely, no big deal, just willy-nilly. I'm gonna go to Nebraska on a whim and just play football. So I just think that type of stuff is really cool. So I had I Am Hipp as probably number one on my list. And I don't pick a lot of people from before we were alive. So that's one of those things I usually pick from like my era. So yeah, that's what I had.
He was, you were right, Jeff. He was Nebraska's first player to have consecutive 1,000-yard rushing seasons.
But that included bowl games.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the media guide has it as a stat, but he did. If you take away the bowl games, he didn't have consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, and he didn't set a single season record. He was just short of the record, which was held by Bobby Reynolds, if you take away the bowl game
Gotcha.
in his
Okay.
first
All right.
season.
The common fans will allow the bowl games.
It's
We'll allow it.
confusing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we should.
Yeah.
There you go.
Definitely. Jeff
Four
certainly
groups.
like has to puff up his resume as much as possible. So we endorse that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Common Fan
100%.
Podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. I had I Am Hipp as well on my list. When he finished his career, he was the team's all-time leader in rushing yards. So a lot of cultural significance here for Hipp. I also think probably a failure. One category we're not doing for Mount Rushmore is the all-name team.
Yes.
The Mount Rushmore of names. And Isaiah's pretty unique. Isaiah Hipp, like maybe you're a candidate for the all-name team. I think I Am Hipp, you're automatically
You're in.
on the all-name team. So that might be another one we have to think about.
And he might be not just Nebraska football history all-time. It might be all-time college football. All schools included. I Am Hipp, and maybe a little cooler in the late 70s, early 80s when, hip was used as a way to describe somebody, not really used as much anymore. But at the time, what a cool name.
Now, what's old is
Still
new
a cool
again.
name.
What's old is new again, Matteo. Everything's coming back. So I Am Hipp is coming back.
Well, hot dog.
Here's one for the all-name team for you, Jeff. Maybe you're probably already aware of this, but Wonder Mon's grandson, quarterback, committed to Notre Dame.
Yes.
Within the last month or so. So maybe you guys have already talked about that. But
Wonder.
No. So does the grandson have a sweet name too, or you're just thinking of Wonder?
He's Wonder Mon's the fourth, I think.
Oh, I love that. You can't let that name go. Yeah, exactly right. You got to keep that going.
That's incredible. All right. Mike, who'd you have as the second name on your Mount Rushmore of Nebraska football walk-ons?
Well, I had Jared Tomich, but I'm going to go to the third one, and this will probably be.
No, that's okay. Hold on. Let's keep it there for now. Would love any additional assessment of Tomich that you had that Brandon may not have mentioned.
Oh, Brandon had pretty much everything that I had down there. I mean, that was to me, that was a no-brainer. He had to be on there.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, we'll come back to you for your third.
Okay.
Brandon, who was your second?
Yeah, my number two, and now I'm worried that I'm scooping Mike because I know he's on his list based on something he said. But I'll go back to kind of the credited origins of the walk-on history at Nebraska in defensive end Langston Coleman, who famously hitchhiked from DC to Lincoln. And numbers wise, there's players that probably have a better case, though he was a very good player and a contributor. But just think about that. Not just hitchhiking being a thing from the 60s and 70s, but in 1962, as a black man from Washington, D.C., trying to get to Lincoln. And this is like kind of the story goes, set up by Ted Sorensen, a Nebraskan from Lincoln High, speechwriter for JFK, finds out somehow that Coleman wants to go to Nebraska and kind of, connects whoever he needs to connect there. And he makes the whole journey, like, which in itself, just the journey, like, is a novel. You could end the book when he gets to Lincoln and Bob Devaney says, "Well, he came all this way. I guess we should find something for him to do." And he goes on to become a really good player. Plays a really important game against Alabama, a segregated team at the time. So he's credited as the first in Nebraska. Now, were we keeping track if some guy walked on in 1927? Probably not in the way we were today. But as the first, and given the importance of the walk-on program to Nebraska, Coleman was my number 2.
That's incredible. I admittedly, I pride myself from a common fan perspective, not from a journalist perspective, but I pride myself on knowing a lot about Nebraska history. But tell more about the Ted Sorensen connection?
I don't know much other than he was in DC at the time. He was from
Sure.
Lincoln High.
Yeah, right.
And so what I think it was, maybe Mike knows. I think Langston's mother
Yes.
worked for Sorensen.
Yeah,
that was the connection.
for Sorensen, and actually Langston had mowed his yard and whatever. I mean, it was Sorensen that encouraged him to consider Nebraska. And I think it was, part of the thing was the high school he went to was in a really bad neighborhood in Washington, D.C., a rough thing. He didn't have good academics. So Sorensen stepped in, and I don't know if it was a community college or what it was, but he got him into a community college or someplace, prep school or something, to finish his high school degree. And then he hitchhiked to Nebraska, as you said, with a friend. And along the way, they found situations where they could do a little work and earn a little money. So they, in a couple of instances, they were able to get on a bus and bus a little bit of the way there. Yeah, it was the connection. His mom was a housemaid for Sorensen, and was Sorensen that encouraged him to consider Nebraska because nobody else was really interested in it. They said that the film from that high school was so grainy and so bad, you couldn't tell one player from another.
Wow.
It's difficult to evaluate him. So
Crazy.
That is remarkable.
Yeah.
Well,
and
at the time, not to mention, like you mentioned, I think Mike playing Alabama, who did not have any black players. You wonder how many schools at the time would have taken a black player at the time. And for the record, Nebraska has been on, I don't want to say the cutting edge. That's a weird term for segregation on college football rosters, but Nebraska going way back has allowed black players. I mean, I've got a picture of kind of an artsy picture of George Flippin on my wall, and I think he played in the 1900 or something like that. So that might be a fun episode idea sometime too, talking a little bit of that history of Nebraska football. But that's such a cool story
for sure.
That first of all, how he got the connection to Nebraska, and then actually getting there.
Well, as the political nerd of the bunch, I mean, Ted Sorensen is just such a cool piece of Nebraska history, and his book. I mean, he lived till 2010, so he lived a long time. His book, Counselor, is really, really good, talking all about his time. So I don't know all this off the top of my head. Some of it I looked up, but he started on JFK's Senate staff in 1953. So he was with him all that time. And then when he won the 1960 presidential election, he was President Kennedy's special counsel, advisor, and primary speechwriter. He kind of downplayed it over the years, but I think he maybe wrote more than he's given credit for, even of some of Kennedy's famous speeches and et cetera. So that piece of he's a really interesting Nebraskan for folks who are interested just in sort of that political history and U.S. history, frankly. And I highly recommend his book, Counselor, because it talks all about those days.
Listen to this freaking guy. Jeez. Good Lord. You're a wealth of knowledge. That was impressive.
Some of it I had to Google, Jeff. Some of it I had to Google in the moment.
There's some consideration. He was, some people say he was the first out-of-state walk-on. He was preceded by Bill Johnson from Stanton, Nebraska, who was a year ahead of him, who walked on, except that Johnson came to Nebraska not intending to play football. And the first semester or whatever, some of his buddies convinced him to go out for football in the spring. So he went out in the spring of his freshman year and earned a place on the team as a walk-on. So some people consider Bill Johnson from Stanton the first walk-on and Langston Coleman the first walk-on from out of state. If you look at it realistically, I think Coleman is the first walk-on because he came here with the intention of doing that. Johnson didn't come here with the intention of playing football, but he was persuaded to give it a shot.
That's fascinating.
Nice.
All right, Matty-O, who's your number 2?
Let's see. Well, I had I am Hipp and I had Tomich. So do you want me to give me and I had Joel Mack. Do you want me to give me my last one?
No, I don't want your last one.
Okay.
You should have
Maybe
jumped in
skip-
with one of those with your first one, but that's okay.
I couldn't
You
have
wanna
said anything more than Brandon or Jeff on
Yeah.
I am Hipp or Mike or Jeff on I am Hipp or Tomich. So
well, you just know your opinion is valued here, and you
It
could have
matters.
said
Your
more.
opinion matters.
You
Lance.
matter. All right.
I appreciate that, guys. I needed that.
Geoff, who's your number 2?
I had Jared Tomich as well. I won't be afraid like Matt and just cower and not say anything. We stay at the obvious, the national titles. If we're gonna rank it just purely based on that, like that puts him up there as well. First team All-American. From what I gathered, he had 91 tackles, 26 for a loss, 16 sacks, forced 7 fumbles and recovered 3. And then I think this probably is few and far between. I have another guy on my list that might fall into this category, but he was drafted in the 2nd round in 97. And, there's very few walk-ons that probably make it to the NFL, I would imagine. So that's kind of a cool little stat there for him too. So he was 2nd on my list.
Yeah, I love that. I had Tomich as well. Probably helps that, Matt, Jeff, and I were 12, 13, and 15 in 94, 95, and 97. So we were like the perfect age where college football was basically our entire life. Before we got interested in other things, a little bit older. So even everybody thinks about Grant Wistrom and they bring up Jason Peter. But I have, the earlier memory is Tomich and Wistrom, right? Coming off the edges. That's I have that kind of seared into my brain, those just dominant defenses of the 94, 95 teams in particular. So I had Tomich, but Brandon, yours, I think Coleman's going to deserve some special consideration because anyway, we'll get to that at the end. Geoff, go ahead.
I was big into college football back then, but I was also big into pro wrestling too. Just so you know, I was big.
But Jeff, literally nobody cares.
Mike might.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Jeff off stage for a minute. We just can't have that. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Love you, Geoff. All right, Mike, let's get your number 3.
Well, I was going to Langston Coleman. Coleman was going to be my first one just because of the situation there. But Bob Devaney said that he might have been the nastiest player he ever coached. At one point, that's how tough he was. He had some injury problems his junior year, but had an outstanding sophomore year, and he was a starter as a senior.
Wow!
So he would be the third one I would mention.
That's high praise from Devaney.
Absolutely.
Brandon, who's your number 3?
Yeah, so my number 3 was Joel Makovicka, and he was kind of the name I looked at first, and I was like, well, I better go back and me being me, at least check the numbers to see if it's no, Jeff has a better case, and I don't think based on the numbers that's the case. It's just kind of the classic story I think we think of. What was he, an 8-man player?
Mm-hmm.
He
was,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's Butler.
Yeah, so that adds something to the slate. If it was 6-man, it would be even better since Nebraska is one of the few states that plays 6-man football. But 8-man's still pretty good. Part of 3 national championship teams. a Doak Walker nominee as a fullback, which I'm sure happened more often then than, well, I didn't notice it at the time or remember, but it seems crazy now. But he's rushing for like 700 yards in a season as a fullback. And when you look at that stretch, it's somewhat symbolic, I think, that the fullback played such a key role in like 94, 95, 96, 97, with Joel kind of bookending that on the back end, his brother Jeff, but also Corey Schlesinger, who wasn't a walk on, but he's two like fundamental, unforgettable runs against Miami to deliver that first national title. It was kind of a little bit proof of concept, for lack of a better term, of, oh, hey, these guys that are back here that do a ton of blocking but also roll up massive rushing totals because of the offense, like, they're really, really good athletes too. They're not just somebody that Nebraska put there. Like, they can hurt you. And during that era in particular, but really all of the Osborne era, they did.
Love
They
that.
can hurt you.
Absolutely love that. Yeah. All righty. Matteo, your 2 and 3 were I Am Hipp and Jared Tomich. Did you want to say something? We'd love to have you say something.
Sure. I would love to say that this guy isn't on my list, but I wanted to bring him up. Can we do that, or we got to wait till the very end?
You can throw it out there for now. Just
Okay,
don't sidetrack us too much.
No, I won't. This is more recent history, and this is kind of has to do with while he was at Nebraska, but also went on to play in the pros. And I'm going to go Spencer Long, offensive lineman out of Elkhorn.
Okay.
Had a number of accolades while he was at Nebraska. Obviously, started as a walk-on, and then was drafted, I think, in the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Yeah,
and played a few years for Washington. So I think if I didn't go the whole thing without naming it a lineman, I would have felt really bad about this because, and I mean offensive lineman, not we talked about Tomich, but
so
there's been a number of starters at offensive line that were walk-ons, and he was kind of the most recent.
You're floating his name for consideration because we all have spots to fill. We all have to fill. But you're saying he's not your 4th. He's not.
He did not make my list, but I'm waiting because I want to follow the rules. I don't want to make him mad.
Yeah, appreciate that. Spencer Long, if you're listening, you were almost good.
You were in consideration.
Yeah, not quite.
You're in consideration.
Geoff, who's your number 3?
After the first 2, I kind of get a little bit more fun with it, so I'm really excited for these ones too. So, I went with, I say more recent. God, we're getting old, fellas. I mean, this is 20 years ago or more, but I went with Sam Koch for my 3rd walk-on. He broke the single season punting average. He's averaging 46.51 yards per punt, which is crazy. During his career, he had 56 punts downed within the 20-yard line. Incredible accuracy. His career punting average is about 44 yards. And he played 16 years in the NFL. And while he was there, some argued that he revolutionized the way they kick the football in the NFL. Pro Bowler, a Super Bowl champion, and he invented his own kicking styles. I think there was one that was called like a Cook hook that changed how NFL teams even approach fielding special teams kicks. So Sam Koch, I wanted to give him credit where credit is due. Just simply because of his list of accolades and his resume after he left Nebraska. It's pretty damn impressive.
That's fantastic. Geoff, I just want to say what I love most about this Rushmore series is that
actually researching.
You seem to have discovered Google.
Yes, I've learned a thing or two during this time. It's actually been pretty fun. I've had a pretty good time doing this.
It only took almost 3 years, but this is great. Good job.
Thank you.
We're really proud of you. Everyone's really proud of you.
Thank you.
I am going to offer my 3rd, but does anybody want to comment on Sam Koch? Or if that's your 4th, you can wait until then.
It's great. I think it's a good choice.
Great poll. Yeah, great poll, Geoff. I'm going to go with an alum of St. Pius X Central Catholic High School, 6000 A Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, a resident of Bend, Oregon, a 2-time national champion, and a 10-year veteran of the NFL, Adam Treu. We have thoughts on that?
There's a little bit of bias there, I think, your Pius connection, but you can't argue with the long NFL career, mostly with the Raiders, if I believe.
Yeah, he was with the Raiders the whole time, and he was on the 94 and 95 teams, as a left tackle, and then he played center in the NFL. I think, Matty O, when we were texting about this episode in advance in particular, you commented, like, "I can't imagine doing this without having a lineman," and that rang a bell for me, and I looked it up, and sure enough, Adam Treu was a walk-on, but I think people think about Nebraska's program, and I don't have the data to back it up. I should have done this research. Jeff, maybe you could help me next time. Um, but I think they think of like linemen and fullbacks, right? Like,
Yeah.
and whether or not the numbers actually back that up, some of the names that have been offered here are neither offensive linemen in particular and fullbacks, but some of the names that have been offered here are neither. But I had to have at least one offensive lineman on my list. Yeah, there's a little bit of bias. There's a little bit of
Sure.
personal preference there.
So maybe
But
I'm wrong too.
also a great career at Nebraska, great career in the NFL. Sorry, go ahead, Gio.
No, it just sounds like apparently more walk-ons have been drafted in the NFL than I thought, because it seems like every single one of them we brought up so far has been drafted in some way, shape, or form. So
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's probably
That's
why
why they're on the Mount
list.
Rushmore, Jeff.
Yeah.
Sure.
We're not talking about the bottom of the barrel here, Jeff. We're talking about Mount Rushmore for crying.
I got some bottom of the barrels on my list too. Just so you
I'll
know.
bet you do.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get to everyone's fourth picks right now, Mike's got I am Hipp, Jared Tomich, Langston Coleman. Brandon's got Jared Tomich, Langston Coleman, Joel Makovicka. Matty O's got I am Hipp, Jared Tomich, and Joel Makovicka. Geoff has I am Hipp, Jared Tomich, and Sam Koch. I've got I am Hipp, Jared Tomich, and Adam Treu. So once again, guys, this happened in our other episodes, even the ones where I thought it would be more wide open. A lot of the same names
Yeah.
emerging here. A lot of the same names emerging. All right, Mike, who's your fourth and final face on Mount Rushmore?
Well, it's already come up, Spencer Long, but
Nice.
I want to put it in context, okay? The context of what I had before.
Yes.
Isaiah Hipp, Chapin, South Carolina. And I did consider Joel Makovicka. That was one consideration. Langston Coleman of Washington, D.C., Jared Tomich, St. John, Indiana. So I wanted somebody from Nebraska. A walk-on from Nebraska was a consideration. I wanted an offensive lineman because Nebraska has had some really good offensive linemen that have walked on, including Adam Treu, which is on my list. And Spencer Long is from Elkhorn, Nebraska, so that covered that part of it. And I also wanted somebody out of the Tom Osborne era, just to reflect the fact that it wasn't just during Osborne's era, and the Vanny getting it started, but it continued. And so Spencer Long played for Bo Pelini, and the walk-on program is not just Osborne, although that was a significant program during Osborne's tenure as coach. It's much more difficult now, obviously, but Spencer Long fit the bill. Matty said all the good things about him. Captain his senior year. He started every game as a sophomore and a junior, and then I think the first 6 as a senior, and he was injured and lost for the season. But I think that he was my fourth.
Love that.
And I considered Joel Makovicka as my fourth, but because I just wanted somebody in the offensive line, and wanted somebody outside the Osborne era.
Yeah, I love that. Love that
Yes, sir.
rationale,
Yeah.
Mike.
Yes, sir.
Spencer Long, you are good enough. I spoke too soon, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. Brandon, who's your number 4?
So as I told you guys, this is where it got a little bit interesting for me. So my long list, I had I am Hipp, of course, who I think all signs point to he's gonna make it, which I'm perfectly good with. Sam Foltz was in consideration there for me, as well as a couple of other special teams players. We have our own special teams Mount Rushmore in Alex Henery and Baron Miles. Both were there, but for a lot of the same reasons that Mike, mentioned, my fourth pick ended up being Spencer Long.
Wow, jeez.
You look at so double affirmation. You are good enough, Spencer. You are.
Smart enough.
Um,
That's funny. People like you.
he was a second team All-American as a junior in 2012, I think. Nebraska plays for a conference championship game that year, and probably if he doesn't get injured as a senior, is in contention for those type of accolades again. Definitely an all-conference caliber player at that point. And when I looked at that, I was like, well, if he'd just gotten to play the rest of that season, the resume, quote unquote, is a little bit closer to being a no-brainer. But also when looking at my list as a whole, for similar reasons, because if I'd gone with Steve Manstedt from Wahoo, who would is a member of the Nebraska College Hall of Fame. Wasn't an All-American, was an All-Conference player, and interesting to me, bridged the Devaney and Osborne eras. You get another in-state guy, but then it only had 3 defensive linemen. I was like, that doesn't seem right. So I wanted an offensive lineman, preferably a Nebraskan. I think when you think about the complement of all 4 of them together. So that's why Spencer Long ended up being my number 4.
Well,
Love it. Shocking. Spencer Long.
Mike and
You did it,
Brandon,
man.
I live in the same town as Adam Treu. So if I see him around town, I won't tell him that you guys picked Spencer Long over him because he's also an offensive lineman from Nebraska. I'm just saying.
Minus the 10.
That's right. That's right. All right, Matty-O, who's your fourth and final?
Okay. I kind of wrestled pretty hard with this one. But I really kind of wanted to go with, to me, the closest comparison Nebraska would have to Rudy, right?
Don't you steal mine.
Jeff, I'm not going there, but really the closest we could have to Rudy. I didn't go that route, so I'm not going to say the name because it sounds like Jeff might have that name. I couldn't leave off Alex Henery, and I'm really surprised Brandon did. I mean, I know Brandon's an Alex Henery fan. But I wrestled with the guy that I thought Nebraska's Rudy versus Alex Henery. My thinking on it was, okay, if you took one of them off, like never played at Nebraska, which one would have directly more affected wins and losses? And I had to go with Alex Henery on that. Just because the kicking stats are unbelievable. The accuracy was unbelievable. The game-winning kick against Colorado, unbelievable. So Alex Henery, also a Nebraska kid, if I'm not mistaken, gets my 4th spot on my Mount Rushmore of Nebraska football walk-ons.
Yeah, that's a great poll. Great poll, Matty. A lot of Alex Henery discussion during the special teams episode as well.
I grappled with that one myself.
Geoff, who's your number 4?
So Owens, I think who you're referring to, he's on my honorable mention list. So we'll get.
Oh, well, thanks a lot, Jeff. I could have waxed poetic.
You still can, Matt. You still can. We want you to talk, Matt.
Well,
I don't know. You guys are going to think this one's weird, but I'm going to go with it here. And there's a reason behind this. So you got to trust me and hear me out here. So I, again, went back to about over 20 years ago, and I went with a safety/special teams player by the name of Brandon Rigoni. And there was a few reasons I did this. Okay. The first thing is, I don't know. You 2 guys have seen me in person. Mike, Brandon, I'm about 5'6", so I'm not the tallest guy in the world.
That's generous.
This guy that I'm talking about was 5'6", 185 pounds, and he does represent like the blue collar walk-on mentality of Nebraska that goes back for ages. Incredible effort. He was a violent hitter. From what I've heard, he was incredible in the weight room. He had an awesome nickname. Brandon, you talked about this earlier, just how I enjoy a good nickname, but his nickname was the Human Missile. I don't think it gets any more cool than that. And most importantly, though, he led the charge on kickoffs. And just to give you guys a little background, when I was a freshman football player at Pius X, I also led our team down the field on kickoffs. Yes, I would get lit up from time to time, get routinely just drilled by players left and right, but damn it, I was out there and I was being tough. So this guy, he broke wedges, he leveled returners. Long story short, he's me. He's basically me. So in
Oh
a
my
way,
God.
I'm kind of putting myself on Mount Rushmore for Nebraska in a way. So Brandon Rigoni is my guy. That's who I'm going.
Yeah, I think Brandon Rigoni can be your guy.
Yeah,
He is.
he's just
He's
like
not
me.
you.
You
Me
are
and him
not
are
Not
the
him.
same
you, Jeff.
person.
You are not
Essentially, we're
him.
the same person.
Let's be clear. All right, guys. For my number 4, I have been convinced by others on this distinguished panel. I came into this conversation fairly firmly having decided to have Andy Janovich on my list, simply because I love Andy Janovich. And he used to talk about toughness, Jeff. He used to headbutt people in the locker room when they had a helmet on and he didn't. Um, and he was, I think he was a walk-on in the Pelini era, and then he really shined actually when Mike Riley took over. And I'll never forget his run against Wisconsin in 2015 to give us the lead with about 3 minutes left in the game. True to form, what we didn't know at the time in 2015, this would become our new normal. We lost the lead and lost on a walk-off on a game-ending field goal, which is very painful. That's also the game when I had the police called on me, which we talked about in a different
Yes,
episode.
yes, yes. I remember this.
I didn't do anything wrong, as everyone knows. I was just
Very
excited.
emotional.
I was just
Just
excited
very
about the
emotional.
touchdown.
Yes.
Just
Mhm.
excited about the touchdown.
Sure.
So then I became convinced to replace Janovich with Joel Makovicka when he was brought up because I think Makovicka maybe is a little more central. Love Janovich, no complaints about the Janosaur, but Makovicka was a little more central to sort of the history of walk-ons. Obviously, played on championship teams, which is where I've aired multiple times. But then, as the conversation went on further, I have decided my 4th and final pick will be Langston Coleman. For all the reasons that we discussed, he's not a guy I knew a lot about coming into this, but based on what Brandon said and what Mike said, and sort of the whole discussion around that and the history behind that, I think that's a really cool one to add, an important one to add. So I'm going to go with Langston Coleman for my 4th one. I love the story behind
Very
that
good.
guy, and I look forward to somebody needs to write a book on that guy if they haven't already. Mike, is that your next book, Mike?
I don't think, the interesting thing was, again, he had the academic issues in high school and they got those resolved. He got a doctorate. He earned a doctorate and was an university administrator was his career. I mean,
Wow.
he was really successful and off the field as well as on
That's
in a
fascinating.
dramatic way.
Amazing.
Yes.
All right, so we need to settle our final 4 based on all of our lists. Before we do that, are there any other sort of candidates, honorable mentions, folks on your list who almost made it, who have not yet been mentioned today?
Brandon, Mike, anybody?
Well, Joel Makovicka was right off my list. Originally, he was on my list, and then I got to thinking about the offensive line thing, and because I couldn't take Isaiah Hipp off my
Sure.
list, so I bumped him. But Jimmy Williams is somebody I considered. Washington D.C. walk on. He and his brother walked on, and he earned All America honors his senior year. Defensive end. Joe Wilkes was somebody I considered. One of the guys and part of when it became the pipeline on a guard on the national championship team in 1994. I saw some stuff. I looked online and I saw some stuff about how Jarvis Redwine was a walk on. I was a big Jarvis fan, but I think that the logic behind that was he transferred from Oregon State and he set out a year. And then he got a scholarship in 79 and he played in 79 and 80. So I don't think he wasn't a walk on in my way of thinking, nor was Jim Scott, who started out at UNK as center and then transferred to Nebraska, set out a year. And then I think at some point he got a scholarship, but I don't, if they started playing at another school and then transferred, that kind of put them off the list for me.
Yeah, sure.
Good stuff,
Yeah,
Brandon.
I kind of ran through, my long list, and in explaining my number 4 from like a kind of numbers accolades perspective. Cleat Pillen was kind of floating around a little bit for me. But the Mount Rushmore is kind of a narrative, for lack of a better term. So he didn't quite make it for me in terms of that. But for the most part, I think a lot of the names that have come up are a pretty good long list for this, and I'll have to get it to 4. And I'll just not to puff him up too much, but I did appreciate Jeff's pick of Brandon Rigoni. There's something about having a guy where it's like you just look at him and be like, oh, you just care more than everybody else. Maybe not everybody, but like you clearly lack some of the physical traits and tools that these other guys have. The only reason you're here is because you want to be here more than everyone else. It's kind of the ideal version of a walk-on in that sense.
Wasn't that when they had an offensive captain and a defensive captain, and then they added special teams captain, and Rigoni was the guy specifically for him because of what he did.
And that would be such a better movie if they would make one about Brandon Rigoni than Rudy. I mean, we all know by now that most of that's fictitious.
The whole Rudy
and
movie
was
was fraudulent.
conjured up by Rudy Rudiger.
Yeah.
And
Go
his
door to
ego.
door in Los Angeles
And
trying to
his
sell a
ego.
story.
Yeah,
I've heard all the stories, guys.
Turns
I've
out
heard
he's
them
not
all,
such a great
okay?
guy. Brandon Rigoni, awesome guy.
Brandon Rigoni's the real Rudy. All right, Matty or Geoff, did you guys have any others on your list?
I had Joel Wilkes, and Mike just said Joel Wilkes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's starter on the offensive line that beat, Warren Sapp and Ray Lewis in Miami. Like that's pretty substantial, but no, not quite enough to get on the Final Four. But I had Joel Wilkes. He was one that was mentioned that I didn't really have any other ones, but I thought that was a good name to mention.
Yeah. Geoff, did your Google searching yield any other results?
It did, actually. So there was one that was very interesting. I'll mention him at the end, but the one I thought you were going to go with in comparison to Rudy Owens was Matt O'Hanlon.
Oh,
because he literally was like, he wasn't even an invited walk-in. He just showed up for tryouts and made the damn thing. He spent 3 years on the scout team. Like that's literally like Rudy, like in the movie, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah.
And then he started all his games in 2009 as a captain. He even had like his own like Rudy moment, like a game. I think it was against Oklahoma when he had 3 interceptions in a single game and 12 tackles.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff.
What?
You were literally at that game sitting next to me, Jeff. So there's no.
I do remember that.
Say,
yeah.
I think he had that. You were at the game, Jeff.
My point is he's more like Rudy than anybody else on the list. I can't believe they haven't made a movie about that guy. Like literally, like he's the Rudy where he's during the tryout session and Bo Pelini was coming out there being like, if you had half as much heart, if you had half as much heart as Matt O'Hanlon.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
So he was on there. And then I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but Kurt Tomavazich, I think, or something like that. Thomas Savage. Yeah. The only thing I put him on here just because this is pretty unique. And I had no idea about this, that he went on to become like an Olympic bobsledder after he left the Huskies. Yeah. He's got a gold medal in the Vancouver Olympics, and I think he got a silver in Sochi. So that's kind of cool too, as far as a career after Nebraska football. Not necessarily getting you on the Mount Rushmore, but definitely worthy of just mentioning.
These summer series that we do, I think, are not only fun for us to talk about it and rehash all these old memories. It's also great for Jeff to get a history lesson.
I know, I love it.
I mean, I feel like the last 3 summers, Jeff's learned so much.
It's fantastic. I'm just a wealth of knowledge now.
Well, I feel like he always learns a lot, but then something will come up like a year later, and he'll like, "Wow, I didn't know that." And be like, "Jeff, we talked about that during the Reckoning series. What do you mean you don't remember it?" Like, I don't know how much he's retaining. To be honest, yeah, but that's okay. We love you, Jeff. All right, we got to settle our final 4 lists, gents. So here's what I've got. If my calculations are correct, all 5 of us had Jared Tomich. Are we good? Jared Tomich is apparently the George Washington of Nebraska football walk-ons.
Yep.
And then 4 out of the 5 of us had I am Hipp. Okay. So is everybody good with those 2 being on the walk-on Mount Rushmore begin with?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Then we've got, I think it's 2 out of these 3. Langston Coleman was on 3 of our lists. Joel Makovicka was on 2 of the lists, and Spencer Long was on 2 of the lists. Is there anybody else I'm missing that was on? Let's see. Makovicka was on 2 out of the 3. Spencer Long, 2 out of the 3. Yeah, then it was. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the other multiples were Langston Coleman 3, Joel Makovicka 2, Spencer Long 2.
I think we got to go with Langston Coleman for one of those spots.
I think that's probably right.
Yeah, just for everything that's been detailed and the historical significance of that and his story. I think the fourth one's up in the air. It sounds like it's Joel Mack or Spencer Long.
All right, Mike, I'll throw it to you first as our featured guest for this episode. What are your thoughts on the battle between Spencer Long and Joel Makovicka?
Well, like I said, I had Joel Makovicka on my list initially, and then I dropped him off because I wanted the offensive lineman. I wanted the Nebraskan, which Makovicka would have fit that thing. And, I wanted somebody outside the Osborne era to reflect Walk-Ons post Tom Osborne. So that would be my argument for Spencer Long, but I certainly wouldn't be against Joel Makovicka because, like I said, on my initial list, I had him, and then I got to thinking about that, and I went with the offensive lineman.
Brandon, you had both. I'm gonna make you pick one.
Yeah, and I think Mike's rationale is one I can absolutely get behind there in terms of the offensive line and its importance at Nebraska. I had both, but if you force me to choose one, because it represents that, a lot of what we talk about and a lot of the guys we talk about end up clustered in the Devaney and Osborne eras, as is somewhat natural, I think, based on age, but also based on kind of the success of those teams. So Spencer Long is a little bit of a curveball, I guess, at least in that it's an acknowledgement that, hey, this thing was like part of Nebraska, not just part of great Nebraska football, the amazing 40-year run that they had. So while it's tough to leave Joel off, that's why I would go with Spencer Long as well.
All right. So Matty-O, you had Joel on your list, not Spencer, but you were the first one to bring Spencer up as your first. Sounded like maybe he was even your first alternate. So now that it's coming down to these two, have you rethought anything here? What are your thoughts? You got to basically this could come down to the wire.
I don't want to be the deciding.
You're the swing vote. Yeah, you are.
Oh my God. Oh God. Oh, and just don't mess this up.
Not necessarily. I didn't have either of them on my list. So
okay.
You won't. You got to vote one way or the other.
I can't remove Joel Makovicka. I can't. And I don't know if it's 15-year-old Matty-O watching him rumble down the field against Washington, or insert any other team here that they played, or just absolutely decleaning a linebacker on an option block. I can't leave off Joel Makovicka. I'm sorry, guys.
Love it. You don't have to apologize.
Hey, I'm sorry. I love offensive linemen. I like defensive linemen more, but I love offensive linemen. But I got to go with Joel.
Geoff, this is really coming down to the wire. You got to pick one: Joel Makovicka or Spencer Long. I don't think you had either, did you?
I didn't have either.
Yeah.
Just based on the information I've been provided, I'm gonna have to go with Makovicka on this one myself too. So that's the way I'm leaning.
All right. Geoff goes Makovicka. So it comes down to me. Although the one question, let me deflect for a moment. Should we give our two guests a weighted vote? I feel like their knowledge,
their opinion matters more.
Their opinion matters more. Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
I agree. I think you might be right.
Or should we consider a waiver to allow a 5-man Mount Rushmore?
We have to make the decision. Okay. We have to make the decision.
Yeah, and I don't like how you're trying to wiggle out of this decisive vote.
Yeah,
get up there and be John McCain or don't.
Brandon, that's exactly what I'm doing. I appreciate you calling me out on it. I am trying to wiggle. I am trying to defer as long as possible. I got to go with Makovicka, guys.
Yeah.
This is This is hard. I gotta be honest. Like Spencer Long was not on my list. I think you guys made a compelling case for him, but when I think this whole series, we've recorded almost all of the episodes for this series now, and I continue to err on the side of guys who are on championship teams as one of my main criteria, because that also checks the sort of cultural and historical significance as well. And again, maybe it's the heart going pitter patter for those mid '90s teams. But I've got to go with Makovicka, and this is one of those where the early returns showed Spencer Long with a huge lead, and now there's going to be cries out about conspiracies and other
Cheating.
things because
Ballots being dumped off
Makovicka
the
came
station.
surging back. But I got to go with Makovicka, and I agree. You're right, Geoff. I don't even know why thanks for calling me out on that, Brandon. We can't go 5 names. We can't go 5 faces. We got to keep it at 4, and I've got to go with Makovicka.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It's okay,
I don't-
TJ. You
I
didn't kill
don't
anybody.
feel bad at all about a Nebraska.
I feel
bad.
terrible about this.
Never mind. Mike's never coming back on the show. Thanks
Mike's
a
like,
lot.
why did I waste
Appreciate
my
it.
time with these
Yeah.
idiots? Yeah. I told myself last time I wasn't going to go back on with them. Oh my gosh. I love it. So our finals are Jared Tomich, I Am Hipp, Langston Coleman, and Joel Makovicka.
This wouldn't have been so controversial if you guys just would have put Brandon Rigoni on there. It's not too late to change your mind.
He was under consideration for sure, Jeff.
Yeah. I feel really good about that final list. A special tip of the cap to Spencer Long, who sort of seemed like he was just going to be a secondary consideration when Matty O brought him up, but then came storming out of the gate with Brandon and Mike. So, Brandon, I'd love to. Aside from the dawdling at the start of my answer, was that like, did I bounce back? Was that close to John McCain?
You did. I mean, you gave a decisive thumbs down to Mike and I, Spencer Long, like McCain did, and that's okay. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
That's why the game's worth playing.
Yep, that's exactly right. This is the first one of these that really came down to a final vote. This is exciting. This
might be one of the most exciting ones. Definitely.
When you lost me on the internet for a little bit of time, I said some things that would have convinced you that
that's how it always goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
it's just sort of historical footnote at this point, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, that's all right.
You weren't having internet issues, Mike. TJ just cut you off completely.
Oh, okay.
That's just for you, Jeff. That's just for you.
All right. Well, we're going to give Brandon and then Mike the final word. Geoff, any final thoughts on this discussion?
No, this was just a really fun one, to be quite honest with you. And I love how it came down to the very, very end. For the people that are going to listen to this one, good times. That was a good one.
Yeah, and congratulations again for literally doing research for one of the first times in your entire life.
I had some time. I had some spare time, so thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
Matty O, any final thoughts from you?
No, I was a little bit iffy on doing the Walk-Ons episode because I wasn't sure how much we'd be able to discuss, but I'm really glad we did it because it absolutely is a huge, huge part of Nebraska football, and I think we came up with a great Final Four.
We did, and once again, we're learning. I've made this point before, but I was worried that if we had too many categories for Mount Rushmores, it would kind of dilute it. There can't be too many. This is just too much fun.
This is just the start.
Next summer, we might go like position by position, interior offensive linemen, tackles, tight ends, fullbacks, running backs. We could go on forever.
Wingbacks. We could do wingbacks. We could do best rovers. We could get into the Nebraska defensive terminology.
Bring back
who was the best? Who was the best peso?
Peso. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. Pesos. All right, Brandon. Any final thoughts from you?
Well, just as you were talking through that, it made me think, and I was kind of thinking as we were talking through this, like an interesting Mount Rushmore for Nebraska might be like, what are the 4 most valued positions at Nebraska? Because I've mentioned in some other shows, like D line kind of keeps coming up in a lot of these categories. Obviously, we're talking about defensive linemen in the offense episode. Nebraska's had a lot of good defensive linemen. People clearly associate it with the O-line. People really hold the fullback near and dear to their heart, if they're from a certain era or age. And Michael Severe made the case that special teams is like where Nebraska truly excelled when it was good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting discussion in that regard. I kind of had some similar feelings to Maddie, and I was like, okay, we're doing walk-ons. That'll be something. But I enjoyed it. I did. It was more difficult than I thought, and like you can't argue with the importance of it to the fabric of Nebraska football. So I'm glad we did it.
Yes.
Love that. Mike, I'm going to give you the last word. I just want to say, when it came to walk-ons in particular, I knew you were the man for this job. With all due respect to our other guests, I'm not sure any of the others have as deep of a sense and an understanding of Nebraska football history, and I don't know how you keep it all straight in your brain, but your sort of knowledge of Nebraska football history is unrivaled and unparalleled. And I knew you were the guy for this episode, and you didn't let us down. So on that note, I'm going to give you the last word. Any final thoughts?
Well, you're very kind. I enjoyed going back and looking at the walk-ons. You mentioned D-line, and then John Perella was a defensive lineman, walk-on, right?
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned wing back. Anthony Steele was a walk-on, very good wide receiver. There's so many walk-ons that have had an impact on Nebraska football. I just enjoyed going back through them and looking at the names, and there's so many that I didn't even get to. Rodney Lewis, Bloom Lewis, he was a walk on, I think, and I think Brandon mentioned Cleet Pillen was a walk on.
Yeah.
It's just an enjoyable time because of the importance of walk-ons to Nebraska's success.
Yeah, love it. Well, we very much appreciate you joining us for this episode. Thanks to special guest Brandon Vogel, who's joining us for every one of the Rushmore episode, and huge thanks to featured guest for this episode, Mike Babcock, who literally we could not have done this one without you. So with that, common fans, be kind to each other. We'll be back at you soon. In the meantime, as always, GBR for life.
Holy moly! Man, woman, and child did that. Put them in the aisles. And Nebraska takes the lead. And the national championship is Nebraska.